Welcome back to the shop and to the channel. Well, it's been a little while since I put together one of these odds and ends videos. A few things have been going on in the shop. Received a few things from some viewers and found some junk at auction. So I figured I'd take a little bit of time and share what's been going on. First, I'd like to take a quick second just to thank all those that have been subscribing to the channel. It's been taking off quite a bit lately. I appreciate your viewership, and I especially thank those that have chosen to support the channel either through PayPal, Patreon, or other means. It really does mean a lot. My good friend and fellow YouTuber, Tom over at Hilltop Machine Works, has made a revision to his logo and stickers and even started making some coffee cups, and he was nice enough to send one my way. I really appreciate it. This thing's going to hold a lot of caffeine, and that'll come in handy some of these earlier mornings. We'll get his new sticker put up on the sticker door. Stuart over at Stuarts Shenanigans. He's got a newer YouTube channel, and he sent this crappy sticker along. And if you watch Stuart's channel, and I hope you do, you'll understand that that's a joke. But Stuart redid his stickers here recently, and I reached out and asked him if he'd send a couple along so I can add them to the collection. A long time ago, I had a viewer reach out and ask me if there was anything specific I needed, and they suggested I put together an Amazon wish list, and I did, and I link it in my videos. And a anonymous viewer sent this along. This was from the wish list. These little stubby boring bars for my boring head. These came in handy. I actually recently used these in another video, but this was a nice surprise. Along with it was one of these Noga deburring tools. This is the kind that you can insert into a hole and deburr the back side of it. So again, a couple of surprises. I wasn't expecting these. The sender chose to or asked to be anonymous, and we'll keep it that way. But thank you very much. I appreciate your kindness. I ordered a couple of new books to add to the library. If you've been watching the channel for a little bit, you know I've got a K&T horizontal mill, and I'm trying to get it tooled up so I can cut gears. I still need to find some involute gear cutters. However, in the meantime, I want to do as much reading as I can on the process of cutting gears. A machine that I still have yet to disassemble and clean up is a KLE tool and cutter grinder. And again, in preparation of that machine being usable, I want to read up on actually how to grind some of these tools. I'm not a grinder hand, and I think these references will certainly be put to use in the shop. Well, I saw this on Facebook Marketplace, and it was really cheap, and I blame Clark Easterling and Dave Clark for this, and some other YouTubers. The idea of casting aluminum seemed interesting enough to me that I wanted to start looking into what I would need to do that. And I came across this furnace, super cheap. It's just a Chinese import, runs on propane. But it came with a flask. I still need to get some clamps and the tongs and whatever to pull the thing in and out of the furnace and learn everything I need to do about the right kind of sand and making a mold. But one of these days I'm going to get to it. At least I hope to get to it. But I think it'll be a lot of fun to do a little casting of my own. My friend Tom that lives local to me asked me to do a little machine work for him, and I certainly was willing to oblige. And when he came up and brought me the material, he brought along these old end mills and some woodruff key cutters, some other cutters in here as a gift. And I thought this was fantastic. So much appreciated, Tom. I hope that part that we worked on works out good. Some of these cutters are going to be pretty dull, but again, once I hopefully get that tool and cutter grinder going, I might be able to sharpen some of these. Picked up all these taper shank drills here at an auction recently. Some of these are a little bit too big for my machines, but I figure I'll hang on to them. You never know. Maybe I'll build a bigger shop. Along with these came all these Morse taper adapters, and I'm certain that I'll be able to put some of these to use. My friend and machine scraping mentor, Ron Grundy, acquired some tooling cabinets from Master Lock in Milwaukee, and inside were these parallels. I imagine these are some kind of specialized setup blocks or parallels that were used at Master Lock, and he was kind enough to send me a set. These are pretty unique. I don't know exactly what they would have been used for, but I would imagine they're pretty precise. So I will definitely be putting these to use somewhere in the shop in some kind of a setup, I'm sure. A visitor to a historical society at which I volunteer came by with a bunch of books that he donated to the organization. And we really didn't have a use for them around that shop. And so they offered them to me, and I figured, sure, I think some of these old catalogs are kind of cool. I've got a few editions of these South Bend How to Run a Lathe books, and I find this vintage kind of publications to be interesting. I love just perusing vintagemachinery.org just to see all these old books that are no longer available. I'll have to take a look to see if these exist out there, and if not, maybe I'll try to remember to send these off to Keith Rucker, and maybe he can get any of these that he doesn't have scanned and put up for others to use. In a recent video that I published on my surface grinder, I had mentioned that I really want to get some coolant working on that machine, and a viewer reached out and said, hey, I have this old coolant pump. It's yours if you want it, and shipped it on to me. They asked to remain anonymous. Yeah, it's going to need a little bit of cleanup, and I'm going to have to build a tank for it. But I think this is going to be perfect. It's 3-phase, so it'll fit right in with the surface grinder. All I need to do is get it all cleaned up and rewire it, put a control switch on, build a sump, a little bit of plumbing, and I'll have coolant on the surface grinder. I'm really looking forward to getting this up and running. Couple weekends ago, I spent some time in Chicago visiting Kyle Vanover at Vanover Machine and Repair, and he had some smaller inserts, carbide inserts that he wasn't going to be using on his machines, and said, hey, if you want these, you can have them. So I've got these small triangular inserts that will work in a couple of boring bars that I have. So these are some nice Kennametal inserts, so hopefully these will last longer than the cheap Chinese import stuff I have been using, but these will certainly be useful in the shop and on the lathe. Well, I came across this on eBay and couldn't pass it up. I've been trying to kit up my South Bend lathe with some of the extra tools and stuff that would have come with it or been an option, and one of these is a micrometer carriage top. These come in really handy for when you need to take some precise cuts and you don't have a DRRO on your lathe. It looks like somebody welded on this little extra tab. I'm not exactly sure why that would have been done. Maybe they were using this on something other than a 13-inch lathe. I might put together a video of me taking this thing apart, cleaning it, and putting it back together. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that. These things can come in handy when you need to move the carriage a specific distance, but you don't have a DRO. For example, here I bumped up the carriage to the stop, And then I am just turning this dial to say 100 thousandths. And now I know that when I move the carriage and it bumps up against it, that I've moved exactly 100 thousandths. It's really handy when you don't have a DRO or something like a Travidile. Well, this was a lucky score off of one of the machinist forums, a unfinished Rucker Tool Company 12-inch straight edge. I'm not even sure if Clark Easterling is casting these right now. I would imagine he will be again in the future. But Keith was even surprised when I told him I was able to snag one of these in the secondhand market. But I will definitely be looking forward to getting this machined and scraped in. I don't need another 12-inch straight edge, but this one right here is going to be a one that I'm going to want to keep for a long time. A large machine shop near me closed up, and when they did, they auctioned off all the contents, including all of their Stanley Vidmar tool cabinets. And in hindsight, I wish I would have bid on more of these. They had probably 25 or 30 of them. I could have used a couple more, but I feel fortunate enough that I was able to at least get this one. And this thing was chock full. All of the cabinets were chock full of tooling, and the tooling came with it, or whatever was in it. I think I have all sorts of size of dowel pins, taper pins, roll pins. There's some Woodruff key cutters in here. There's all sorts of stuff inside of this cabinet, most of which I really won't use in the shop, including probably 200 pounds of Allen keys. I'm going to have to go through this and sort it out. I'll give some of this stuff away, but most of it will probably just sit on a shelf, because who needs 20 pounds worth of 1-inch dowel pins? Well, I got it all emptied out and brought into my shop, and now what I'm using it for is small stock storage, because this stuff was just sitting on shelves. These drawers can hold 400 pounds a piece, I think, and they're perfect for all these little pieces of pipe, hex stock, square stock. So at least now I have an easier way of sorting all this material, and I can actually find it. Well, here's a wonderful addition to the shop. This is what's called a portable elevator. Here I'm using it to lift up another new addition to the shop, a 6-inch by 18 by 24-inch grade A Stuarts pink granite. This portable elevator can lift up to 500 pounds, and as I get a little bit older, it's nice to have an option here of how to move some of the stuff around and tooling in the shop, including, moving this granite plate on top of this Vidmar cabinet. Now, this is just a temporary location. I'm going to be building a cart for it, but in the meantime, I'll put it up here just to get it out of the way. Well, it's a little bit dirty, but it'll clean up really nice, and it doesn't seem to have any defects whatsoever in the surface. It was originally a grade A, but it's still under certification as a grade B, which is more than good for what I'm going to use it for. Came across this cast iron surface plate at the same auction I picked up that pink granite, and I'm not sure what they were using it for. It's got a little defect in the corner, but other than that, it's in pretty good shape. I don't know that it was ever used as an inspection plate like a surface plate would be used for. But this might be something that I'd be interested in having it ground and then scraping it. I didn't see any maker mark cast into the piece, but I did find this name here stamped on the top of it with Erie, PA, and 1945. So that gives me kind of an indication of how old it is. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with it. Maybe it will just stay as a surface plate as is. Maybe I'll use it for something, but the idea of grinding it flat and then scraping it is interesting, but then I would lose that date stamp, and I'm not sure I want to lose that. And yes, it is auction season, as you can tell already, and it's only going to get worse, I suppose. But scored this at another auction, a black diamond drill sharpener. And it came with a whole bunch of parts, although it is missing some things. It came with all of these collets, which is kind of cool. You don't usually see the collets with the machines anymore. They seem to get lost. It is missing some parts like the wheel dresser and a wheel. So I do need to find a grinding wheel for this. These things are kind of a special wheel where the grit on the face is different than what's on the edge. The face being used to sharpen a drill and the edge being used to cut the split point. But I do need to clean it up and kind of look for some documentation on it. I'm not sure what I might be missing or what I'm going to need to do to get this running. In a previous video, I showed my Lee tool and cutter grinder that is another project machine, and it didn't come with much tooling. Well, an auction came around and I got some tooling. In these tubs here are a bunch of rusty fixtures, some Univice, some other tooling that's used for grinding cutters. I don't know how well some of this stuff is going to clean up. Some of it's pretty bad and it might be junk, but I think this will be an interesting exercise in derusting. I've used Evaporust in the past, and Evaporust does a pretty good job, but it's kind of expensive and I would need probably 15 gallons of it. So I might try the old, reverse electrolysis, where you hook up a battery charger and some electrodes and soak it in some salty water or something like that. And it will draw the rust off of the stuff that's covered in rust. So, there's some interesting things in here. Might be a couple of duplicates. But yeah, I'm looking forward to giving that a try. And part of that lot also came this tooling here, which I don't know that will work on my tool and cutter grinder. A lot of the stuff is badged as brown and sharp. I'm not exactly sure what some of this is used for, but some of it has some strange mounts like this thing here. I'm not even sure what that would mount on. I don't think it'll mount on my Lee. So I got to do some research to kind of figure out what this tooling will work with and whether or not I can use it. If not, I'm sure I'll find a new home for it. A local machine shop near me closed up, and I got a couple of lots out of it. One of them was this cylinder square. This was a shop-made cylinder square by one of the machinists that actually used to work in that shop. This thing is pretty daggone heavy. I haven't put it on the surface plate to check it for actual squareness. I've got to find a better surface gauge so I can do some tests with it and see what kind of shape this thing's in. It looks pretty good here, but it's kind of scratched up on the surface, so maybe it could use a little lapping. I wouldn't even know where to start and how to do that, but I have a cylinder square and I didn't pay very much money for it either. Well, I'm not sure I really needed another set of gauge blocks, but here I've got another set of gauge blocks. The other set that I have is a little bit more comprehensive than this one, but this is just a simple grade B gauge block set. I think this will come in handy more for setups than the other set that I have. The other set's a set from Ford, and I think this set is not as good a quality, so maybe it'll be better for setups like on a sign plate or something like that. But yeah, they'll come in handy. I have been wanting a Starrett 199 master precision level for a while, but they just seemed a little bit too cost prohibitive. And so when this one came up in auction, I was able to get it for an okay price. It wasn't a great price, but it wasn't a bad price either. And it looks to be in pretty good shape. It is missing the screw that covers the calibration screw, but that's easy enough to get from Starrett. And I was so happy to get this one that I ended up getting a second one. These were both offered in the same auction, and it was buyer's choice, and so I chose to go ahead and take both of them. So this second one is going to find a new home, hopefully. I've already ordered the replacement screws for the calibration cover. Those will be here soon, and we'll get this up on Marketplace. It was too good of a deal to pass up. I can't really remember where these came from. Probably an auction. But these are some shop-made sign bars, but they look like they're unfinished. I don't think they were actually ever completed. So this might be something interesting for me to pick up where whomever started these left off. They're pretty filthy. They need to be cleaned up, but I think it'll be a fun exercise. When I bought my tool and cutter grinder, in the base of it were these blocks of whatever, wax. I didn't know what this stuff was. I thought it was like machinist wax or something like that. I've seen some other YouTubers use this stuff, and there was two big giant blocks of it, and I really didn't know what this was until one day I came across a YouTube video. I can't find it, otherwise I'd link to it, in which somebody was demonstrating how they protect their end mills with this melt-on coating. So what this stuff turned out to be is that protective coating that you see on end mills and other cutters, usually once somebody's sharpened them. And I've melted some in here in this appliance. And what this is, it's a Presto Fry Daddy that I picked up off of eBay. And what's nice about the Fry Daddy is it only reaches a temperature that's just below the flash point of this material. Again, I forget the name of it, but it is actually commercially available. You can get it from, I think McMaster might sell this stuff. But all I got to do is plug this thing into a normal 110 outlet, and it will melt and, bring you back once I get it good and melted. I need to get a better lid, and you need a lid because otherwise it gets really smoky and it stinks up the shop. And you can see how it's already starting to melt, and it's almost like the consistency of like pancake syrup or honey. So I just grabbed an end mill out of the cabinet here, and all I need to do is dip it into this liquid and let it freeze a little bit, and then I can make it a little bit thicker by re-dipping it, and then just set it aside to cool. And now you've got an end mill that's protected, and there's an oil in this stuff too that helps keep it from rusting. And the interesting thing is it peels off pretty simply. It's not like wax or anything where it chips off. It peels off, and you can throw it right back into the Fry Daddy because it'll remelt. Well, I found this pretty nice Polish-made chuck at an auction, 8-inch chuck with removable top jaws. Looked like it's in really good shape. It scrolls. The scroll is really smooth on it. I bought it because the chuck that came on my original 13-inch South Bend lathe is kind of beat up. It's definitely seen better days. And I would like to look at maybe machining a backplate here for this chuck and using it on the 1942 South Pin. I'm not sure that I will, but I think it'd be a better option than this beat up old chuck that's on there now. Well, and it's new machine day. Well, sort of. I did buy this machine. It's a World War II era Sibly drill press. I won this at auction for $5. So I had to save it from the scrapper. There's no room for it in my shop. So I've donated it or put it on permanent loan, whatever you want to call it, down at the Midwest Railway Preservation Society. And we're going to be able to put it to use. I do need to rewire the motor for 480 volts 3-phase, but it has a power down feed on it. It's got multiple speeds, and it's got a high and a low gear. The table crank goes up and down, and the entire quill assembly also can go up and down. We have a project for the 4070 that needs a drill press with a power down feed, and this will come in handy. I think it'll be perfect for it. Well, I think that's going to do it for this Odds and Ends episode. If you like the content, give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you enjoy seeing what I'm doing in the shop in these little short videos, or if I should just stick to making stuff. In any case, I really appreciate you sticking around for this long. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.